DD2020 for skilling. So my job is to introduce our esteemed and very wise and experienced moderator, Raj Gilda. So Raj Gilda comes with an experienced banker turned social entrepreneur. He decided to impact the education and he started with 2 schools in 2005 and currently is impacting 10,000 plus schools and million plus kids. So it's a big hand to him. And it's not just doing something as a kind of change maker, but as a kind of social entrepreneurship that is able to scale, make an impact, and so much bigger impact. So you couldn't have a better moderator on the session with that experience. So let me request Raj to come here. Thank you for him accepting it, and then kind of make the panel happen. Thank you. And before I close, just a 3 requirement from all of you. We want to make sure that this session becomes practical. We want to implement it next year. So anything to do with the government should do this, government should do that, should not be discussed in this panel at all. It should be what we can do next year on the ground level. Second thing is, it is your inputs are important on ground level. What you have seen, if you have seen challenges, your challenges that you have seen, problems you have seen, bring that on the table and bring the best experiences currently in the system. We don't want theoretical experiences. Give whatever is working already with the example that some organization, some foundation, something doing that will also help us to go back to them for help when you are starting the next level. So give best practices which are realistic, already working, you have seen it, you have heard it. And then third would be how to kind of what we can do next year, building on the best practices to solve the problem that we have, and 2-3 solutions we need from each panel. And we'll put down here, and we will ensure that Raj will ensure that out of this 10, 20, there are 100 inputs out of 100 outputs. His job is easy. He is to just select 3. Okay, that's easy job giving to him. So looking forward to exciting engagement, and this workshop will, I would say, set the path for the next year workshop, where we'll have, instead of 1 workshop like this, we'll have 3/4 of the session will be like these workshops, and only one-fourth will be talking. Thank you and welcome.
So thanks Vivek for that wonderful introduction, and I'm glad that this session is not like a typical panel session where the panelists like me are giving gyan and you guys are patiently listening to it and all that. So what we are going to do for next 45 minutes or 50 minutes or so, we have esteemed panelists here. We'll conduct a sort of a curated Q&A along with many questions from you guys as well, followed by breakout groups. You can see the chart papers and other things on your table too, where each of you will be working on a particular question. And then one from each group will present what solution you thought to be. And as Vivek said, we all have a very heavy execution bias, so it has to be done. It should be Vision 2021 and not Vision 2030, right? Which is the fashion nowadays. Now that 2020 is done. So on that note, if I can invite my esteemed panel members to the stage, Vyomkesh Mishra. So he's founder of Medha and doing excellent work in internships aspect and other things. We spoke about internship this morning, and of course he will tell more about his work as well. Atul, we have Atul Saneja here from the Nudge Foundation. He's founder of Nudge Foundation. Multiple hats he wears, and I'm sure he's going to bring all the hats today. In the experience that we have, but the majority of like Gurukul, which he runs for the residential skilling program, which hear from him. We have Akash Sethi from Quest Alliance. Quest Alliance is existing partner of Deshpande Foundation, as well as we heard this morning for teacher training. So we have Akash, here too, and Professor N.N. Sharma from BIMTech institution. So please welcome Professor N. Sharma as well. Great. So I think this is is an after lunch panel, so we'll have to keep clapping, every 5 minutes. I'll give you a hint so that we wake up those who are sort of. Anyway, so I think what we'll do is I'll ask some 1 or 2 questions to them, but majority of them, we will leave it for the audience so that you also remain awake, right? Because you have to ask the question. So, if I can start with, Rakesh, so let's go first thing. Why don't you guys introduce a little bit more about yourself, about in a minute, what each of you do, and then we can start with the formal question so that they have context around.
Thank you, Raj, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vyomkesh, and I head an organization called Metha. We are based out of Lucknow, which is in UP, North India. We work in UP, Bihar, Haryana, and Uttarakhand, the northern states. We basically deliver an employability education program on college campuses, and which is based on employability development training, plus a lot of industry exposure through internships, industry projects, exposure visits, and eventually full-time placements. In the last 8 years of our existence, we have worked with about 250 college campuses in UP alone, and overall about maybe 300 colleges, with support from state government of UP, Bihar, as well as Haryana. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Hi everyone, my name is Atul Satija from the Nudge Foundation. We are a very young organization, started about 4.5 years back. We run fully residential gurukuls that are 90-day long, and young kids 18 to 25 come and live with us for 90 days, where half of the focus is on livelihood skills and the remaining half is on life skills and soft skills and other employability skills as well, and we put them in jobs at the end. We run these gurukuls in Bangalore, Delhi, starting Hyderabad now. And last year we moved our gurukuls under a larger umbrella called Center for Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, where we are running various capacities from running our own programs to innovation to knowledge and research, consulting, technology, and convening more under an institutional structure. So that's a spread of our work and skilling.
Hi, my name is Akash Sethi, and I think the first thing I am is a youth facilitator, because I feel I started working in the skills sector as a 18-year-old college peer educator, and I believe that transformation in young people is possible when learners start also wearing a hat which is not just a learner hat but also a teacher hat. So I strongly believe in sort of young people facilitating experiences for other young people. What Quest Alliance does is really concerned about the 21st century skills, and these are skills around communication, self-awareness, problem solving, decision making, and we believe that as the future of work and learning, the work landscape is changing. Young people need to just learn skills that are more across sectors versus, a domain expertise, need to learn skills that are things like data analysis, problem solving, decision making, etc. So we focus on working in secondary schools and ITIs and polytechnics, where we develop digital curriculum and embed digital content in existing computer labs in secondary schools and vocational training institutes, and train the trainers to be able to change the way they teach from a trainer-led classroom to a learner-led classroom. So learners being able to drive their own learning, decide what they want to learn and how they want to learn, the pace at which they want to learn. So we've impacted about 500,000 young people over the last 7 years, working in over 1,500 schools and training institutes across 7 states in the country.
Well, I am
N. Sharma. I am chairperson of Birla Institute of Management. It is a MBA college promoted by Birla Group of Companies. And besides academic work, this Center of Corporate Social Responsibility provides many kind of consultancy services to corporate in designing their CSR interventions. And moreover, I am also independent director on the board of National Aluminium Company, which is a Naratna company of Government of India, as well as I am vice chairman of Social Audit Committee of SEC and member of the Stakeholder Committee of Bharat, Dalmia Bharat. So in this capacity, we are associated with the corporate who are thinking of designing some kind of CSR interventions, which no doubt includes skill upgradation and skilling of the youth.
Great. So I think we have such a great, panel. Yonkesh working on the school, college campuses, to Atul setting up gurukuls, to Akash looking at teacher facilitation and looking at 21st century skills, to Professor Sharma who brings money to pay for all the programs that it has. So let's give a big round of applause. We can start with a series of applauses and keep all of us awake in that process. So I think first question I would like to ask that all of you have been doing such a tremendous work, and I'm sure any execution is not without the challenges. Whenever you are doing something. So if you can, and this is for you all, that what type of, if there is one challenge you say that you have been able to overcome in your work, and how did you do that? If you can share for your respective field, that will be, great. So we can start with
Okay. So starting with challenges, honestly, there have been many challenges. 8 years back, when I started this journey, I had very, like the hairline that you see right now was very different when I started this journey 8 years back. And jokes apart, I think one thing we realized very early on that in order to basically scale an innovation, you have to deal with the government. You have to work with the state governments because they are the executors. Central government may be designing the policies, but when it comes to the actual execution, the implementation, it's the state governments. And they are very difficult to work with, honestly speaking, and we have had our own sort of experiences and a lot of anecdotes around working with state government officials, etc. But
Vivek has forewarned that panelists should focus on action points only. So that is your warning. But I can't resist the temptation to compliment your team for coming out with these 4 words: aligning, intent, innovation and impact. As a matter of fact, these 4 words capture the soul of the whole transformational process, and these are the only tools and key to address major social problems. Now coming to the issue of skilling, there are only 2 major challenges at macro level, no doubt. The first is scaling and the second is complexity. Why I say so? Because in the morning session, I think Raj has also indicated that every year 1.5 crore youths are joining the workforce. 1.5 crore people are joining the workforce. And at least government data say if from 2015 to 2022, 40 crore people are to be skilled. That includes new entrant as well as those who are working in the informal sector. And country has got a capacity of training skilling of only 7 million. So that is the gravest challenge.
A little up.
So that is the challenge of scaling. And the second challenge is complexity. Scaling is not a technical problem alone. As you will gather from the discourse of Atul and Mishra ji as well as Sethi and Raj ji, that there are many social and cultural aspects involved that is hindering mobilization and many other things. So it should not be viewed as a technical problem. It is a kind of a complex problem and it has to be attacked from many angles. Now the second point is that I am observing that everybody is against the government. I am also against the government. But you also know that in case of a startup, the moment they go for public issue, that is deemed that the startup is successful. So similarly, in the case of any program having potential of upscaling, it must be aligned with the government policy, and government, you must be able to sell your idea so that government can adopt it. Yes, there is an inertia in the government, but that can be surmounted. For example, self-help group movement. It was started by Maryada in Karnataka only, ultimately adopted by Nawad. Then it became a national movement in India. So the second thing is that government resources should be mobilized and there should be some kind of interface with the government. We should not create silo that government can't do anything. Now coming to the point of action point as desired by Vivek ji, let us take one example. India has got more than 600 districts. This Pandey Foundation has created such a beautiful, excellent skilling center only in Hubli. What about other 600 districts? Why it has not taken place? It's a serious question. So the action point is that we have to mobilize many people, many investors, many donors, many philanthropists who can at least start similar type of center in at least 50 districts. So this is one of the action points, and I am very clear that people are ready to give the money. And I think Bill Gates has rightly said that it is very easy to earn money, but it is very difficult to spend it. People are ready with the money. So at least next year, up to next year, 40 such centers should be created in districts. And the second point is that under the government scheme, in all the parliamentary constituencies, that is more than 500, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Kendra are to be set up with the help of the government. As per report available with the government, all the centers have been set up. I have yet to see any functioning center, and Mr. Raju was also telling that I have not seen it. But subject to the condition that if government is setting up such centers in every district, then it becomes our duty and responsibility to bring to their notice different models which can lead to upscaling. Let us take the example of this Pandey Foundation itself. They are having.
So Misha, if I can come back to Vekish, you were talking about the gig economy, earlier you done some pilot. Can you share some example of that, like what have you learned through that, and now how we can bring in the government policy into that, right?
So one challenge that we had was not a lot of formal sector job opportunities were available in the geography that we work in UP and Bihar. So it was a challenge to connect these graduates who we have trained to quality jobs in our geographies. And at the same time, a lot of these like mainstream BAs, BComs and BScs students that we worked with were not necessarily opting for that job which was available after their graduation. So a lot of them were saying no to those jobs. And one major reason was obviously that there was a very high interest of government jobs. So they wanted to wait to apply to government jobs, and obviously the odds were against them, and then so they would come back after a couple of years and then say that, look, can we get those jobs? And interestingly, while we were trying to solve this challenge, we saw that about 10% of these youths were absolutely not interested in 9 to 5 jobs. They were saying that given an opportunity, we don't want to join that, that corporate thing, and given an opportunity, we would rather be a little more flexible and at the same time, do something which is income generating. So that's where this whole, talk about gig economy and can some of these youth be participating in gig economy to become economically independent, and at the same time, can they really develop themselves, and make it as a long-term career? Because as a side track sort of thing, I think it was advisable, but can it really become your main track sort of career path? And that's when we started doing some pilots with a couple of streams of these opportunities. And one we saw was because of this technology sort of entering, a lot of them wanting to become bloggers, YouTubers, and they were wanting to use this web in order to maybe develop some content and putting them online and then generating money out of it. That pilot is still going on. We still have to really test the results. I think what we are looking at is if this can really scale, because from the West we have some examples, some moderate examples of successes and failures. But if this could be the next sort of new jobs, then a lot of these lack of jobs issue problems could be resolved, and the kids would, while dealing with that gig thing, would also generate more skills while doing something concrete, while earning some money, and in that process could grow up becoming full-time professionals, active and very active on gig.
Great, thank you. So Atul, I think the claim to fame for Gurukul has been 100% placement, right? In that. So how have you cracked it? I mean, it is easy to say that I'm preparing for what the employer needs, right? It is one way to say. But then how does it happen in practical to sort of make it happen?
So I just want to clarify one that 100% placement is from the lens of we being able to place every single student who ever graduated from our Gurukuls. That doesn't mean that every student joins and stays. And retention challenges and all skilling institutions we also have. I don't necessarily think that 100% placements is something that is a big deal at all, because I have never met any employer of Nudge. The team is able to figure it out, which means it has never been even a problem for me to go into and solve it. But what we have done, the reason why that happens is that the quality of the actual program is so good that we never had an issue facing, placing people. And we now have the demand for at least the next, for the livelihoods that we run for all the foreseeable future. That has not been an issue. I think probably the way to think about it is that if you want to build a tall tower, you have to dig, not erect. Right? If the foundation is not strong, you can't build on top. And 50 to 60% of the work that we do inside the Gurukul is actually the working on the foundation for the students, which is life foundation and learning foundation as we call it. Livelihood and economic foundation is a small part of what we do. So I think the quality of the program inside is what leads to that.
Akash, the teacher remains the fulcrum of everything, right? Trainer in that sense, because we all can come up with wonderful frameworks, wonderful theory of change, wonderful whatever. But at the end of the day, the teacher is the one, or the trainer is the one who is standing in front of the multiple students or the trainees. How do you see your role as facilitator for teachers and other things in going through?
Sure, and I think building on the point that often adults carry a lot of biases and assumptions about their learners. So the first thing really what we do is work with our trainers and educators on their own understanding of self, of who they are, why do they do what they do.
Can you give an example of what exactly you mean?
Sure. So that's an example of working on self means that I spend a day and a half just the trainer telling their story about how did they become a trainer, why did they make that choice, what motivates them. So first, really reflecting on their story and yourself, reflecting then on who the learner is, which means oftentimes we, based on the gender, caste, religion, or other factors, you start making assumptions about, this learner comes from a certain community, which means they have to do a certain kind of job, or a girl is not worth investing in from a placement perspective because she has to, she will get married and so on and so forth. So working on their mindsets, working on their biases, that they carry, and all of us do, but recognizing that the trainer, we need to invest in the trainer as a learner and change their mindset. So that's another input. I think the third is the trainer is very used to just standing in front of class and delivering a lecture. So how do we change their method of engaging young people? Now, we have a blended learning approach where the learners in our scenario access about 250 hours of digital content based on whatever they want to learn. And then when they come to the classroom, the trainer is expected to bring out what they have actually learned rather than tell them, this is what you should learn. So I think that shift that the trainer is able to bring in their style of everyday teaching is something that we invest in significantly. And the final piece is that trainers across the country are trying out multiple new things, new ideas. And so we build a trainer community of almost 10,000 trainers who are actually sharing what they are doing differently and how can they support other trainers with their own ideas and inspire the other trainers. And finally, I think recognizing these trainers. So we do state-specific awards or recognition with state governments in the ITI and Polytechnic ecosystem, where we can bring out the trainer stories and the trainer achievements. So I think that's and the final piece is really looking at technology as a tool for the trainer, which they can use for both their professional development, but also finding content that's relevant to learners. So that's the other piece that I think we focused on to bring the trainer as a key piece.
In fact, what we have believed is that probably, WhatsApp is the biggest invention since the internet. In that sense, to bring trainers together in a very, easiest way, being able to share, being able to recognize challenges has been. The WhatsApp groups have been, apart from being part of the family WhatsApp group, I think, that is another productive one. So, Professor Sharma, I had to interrupt you earlier about the government thing, and that's because I wanted to ask, you are focused on CSR quite a lot as part of your work. How do you work with the government to make CSR policy more and more conducive? It's a great step forward. In fact, very proud that India is the only country in the world having CSR as a mandate. But how do we work with the government to make it work still better, right? In that.
Well, so far CSR experience is concerned, no doubt it is mandated that 2% of profit will be spent on CSR activity. And the skill upgradation is already part of Schedule 7, which means that any corporate can invest in skill upgradation. Experience of corporate in this arena is a mixed one. It's good,
Can hold it a little.
it's a good, it's bad, as well as it's ugly also. For example, few corporates have done exemplary work. For example, Larsen Toubro. They have set up 8 centers all over the India. Beautiful infrastructure, beautiful trainers, beautiful infrastructure, very high content of delivery, and you will be happy to know that everything is free. Accommodation is free, fooding is free. 8 centers they are running all over the country. Similarly, this GMR, they are having at least 6 training centers, well-equipped centers. Even one is at just opposite to Delhi airport. So few corporations, they have done extremely well so far skill upgradation. But there are many corporates who have just tinkered with the issue of skill upgradation. For example, they will go to a place, for example, a refrigerator mechanic. They will hire somebody who has got no skill, who has got no capability of teaching, and they will start and spend so much money on a skill upgradation. So the experience of the corporate sector is good, bad and ugly. But coming to the second point, action point, I would like to suggest, and which is a very positive thing so far in context of Karnataka. There are a kitty of 20,000 crores by and large annually spent on CSR. And by and large 10 to 15% goes for skill upgradation. Karnataka is the third state which is getting maximum amount of CSR fund invested in the state of Karnataka. That is a very, very positive development. If we are able to, and this Pandey Foundation can play a vital role because you are trusted everywhere. So if you are able to bring corporate who are investing in Karnataka, and by constant dialogue, if you are able to bring them on a kind of collective impact initiative, where somebody was telling in the morning, where impact matrices are also well defined, there is shared agenda that a miracle can take place. It's a very positive development that Karnataka is the third state which is getting maximum amount of CSR fund. So that is my second action point for consideration of development dialogue as well as for all persons, development practitioners who are working.
So I think let's clap for very intelligent questions are asked. Anyway, we'll open it up to the audience now, and wake you up as well. And
a question to the panel is, what are the hurdles that a company should not enter into the educational field? So far, there is a nexus between politicians, education, and skilling, and all those things, although the central government is doing. But the companies and the education skilling part, the content development, why shouldn't it be done by the companies themselves, at least at the graduate level, as well as the skilling level, so that how to aggregate the companies and on the US model kind of a thing, like how education institutions are started by companies themselves. What are the hurdles faced in India?
So what I understood, from the question was that why aren't corporates or the companies starting or running quality educational institutions? To be honest, I think some of them are already running. Some of them are pioneers actually in like setting up these educational institutions. We know Birlas and others. They have always been pioneers. I think one legal, from the regulatory perspective, I think one thing is that all these colleges and educational institutions are Section 8 in the Companies Act, so they have to be not-for-profit institutions, which may be preventing from, bringing private equity money in some of these colleges. And there has been a debate, in the country around, should for-profit institutions be allowed to, run universities and colleges. And we all know that there has been, slight changes in the legal framework as well. To be honest, I think it's not just about these companies running educational institutions themselves. I think there are a lot of ways where corporates and companies should be participating in what a campus is doing or is supposed to do. Because for the companies, that is the pipeline of human resource, and at the same time, that is also in some ways the stakeholder or one of the important stakeholder that they should be working for. The whole concept of CSR comes from there, that you also have a social responsibility. So the way, for example, at a local level, what we have been trying to do is, we are making sure that all these smaller companies and the heads of those companies necessarily come to a campus to give an industry talk. That is one way to actually bring them together, bring these corporates and these colleges together. Once we do that, then we ask these companies to offer some industry project, for these graduates, for the college students. Once we do that, then we tell them to offer some internship opportunities. And then after that, obviously there is a channel that we create between the college and the companies and especially the industries close by, to have that link together, because both have to, work together. The whole problem of the education system has been that they work in their own silos, and companies never really, have taken that extra step to basically participate in that whole curriculum development and education programming process. So yeah.
My question is for Mr. Akash. Will you be able to help organizations like ours in identifying and training right set of teachers for certain skill development program? That's one of the biggest challenges that we face in matching the right talent for that particular kind of a job role and being able to retain them.
Yes, I mean partly yes, because I think partly in the selection we can help design how to do this, how to train, how to upskill, how to recognize, how to grow teachers. So yes, I mean, yes.
And first of all, I just want to say it's so nice to hear all of you talk, because I think with Nudge and Metha and Quest, I work with young people, so to see you guys work on your organizations and see you also transform over time has been really interesting. I think when you're working with young people, generations change, so youth 5 years ago are not youth of today. So I think that's why you're talking about not having a solution today. My question is actually for Atul, if you could perhaps talk to us about what you do at Gurukul, it being a residential program, because if you were to perhaps take away the fact that it's residential and do it, say, in a campus model or in another way, what would it be that you lose, given your experience? Because I think it's very interesting that you've committed to doing a residential as opposed to a different kind of model.
There are three aspects to the design of the Gurukul. There is Life Foundation, Learning and Economic Foundation. Life Foundation is a lot more about life skills, financial literacy, career and employability thinking and stuff like that. Learning Foundation is literacy, numeracy, digital literacy, those pieces. And Economic Foundation is where they get specialization into any one job skill. In fact, increasingly, unlike the skilling sector, we are dropping livelihood more and more. We recently, for service sector, we have dropped almost all specialization work. We used to do data entry, BPO, BFSI, retail sales, and we would see a Starbucks come to the Gurukul, almost like a TCS going to college and exhausting computer science graduates and then looking at mechanical and civil and electrical. Starbucks is coming in saying, look, I've hired the number of students I wanted from your retail batch, can we interview BPO? And we saw the selection rates being almost the same, right? So you're not doing anything magical in actually teaching them how to make a cappuccino. But making people understand customer centricity, language skills to get there is where the core of the Gurukul design was. So we collapsed all of it and we said we're just doing customer service for all service sector. And we saw no difference in hiring, in retention. In fact, everything went up because the product became simpler. In Gurukul, there are two parts of design. There is a living design and there is a learning design. Learning design is still like very much 9 to 6, 9 to 7, 9 to 8 or so. But living design is sort of very unique because all of our Gurukul facilities don't have support staff. Students have to clean the facilities, clean the toilets. When they come in, we give them 200 karma points and they have only 200 to survive. And every deviation from expected behavior gets them positive and negative karma points, and at 0 they are fired from the Gurukul. So we've seen students who are actually very smart enjoy the Gurukul, and then they realize it's not going to last, so they self-regulate their behavior to last at just enough karma points to graduate. And you see the students who kind of graduate with 400 as well. So a lot of these things are ingrained in the design of the Gurukul that leads to learning outcomes being very, very interesting. We just finished our first impact assessment for the Gurukul for the last few years, So students who graduated more than 12 months, 15 months before, we saw that 8% of our alumni actually running their own businesses, compared to the control group of 3%. And for girls, that number is 6% with a control group number of 0%. So all of these other things we do is what is giving the outcomes, because just livelihood is not leading anywhere.
Actually, just wanted to build on that one point, was that this whole aspect of being self-directed, right? Which means, what is the goal I am setting? How am I monitoring the goal that I set, and am I knowing, am I going up in my target or my progress towards that goal? So I think that self-direction is really the key, and you can replicate that, in environments that may not be residential as well. So we found we can build learning management systems where the autonomy of setting the goal, monitoring your progress is given to the learner, and you can constantly be based on peer progress and your own progress, feel motivated to keep moving in a certain direction. So just feel that the principle is self-direction, and how do we design for that in different contexts is something we should be thinking about.
To continue, we have a after break session as well, where we'll be able to get to more. We'll get into the workshop mode as well now, where if you look at your table, there is a paper with number of questions, and so you also need to work now, right? And then one of the question is rounded, from the number of questions. So what you will do, because of the number of people we have, is that those who are working on the ground, please come forward, on the implementation side, given the execution bias we have, today. And then we will, on that particular table, there is a question which is marked on that, which you will work on from the challenges, best practice and action, point of view, right? So if you can move forward here as well to sort of, together. Sorry. No, just come forward.
For someone to pursue a skilled trades career.
1 minute, you can spend time on understanding question, writing down in your own paper or yourself what are the challenges that are there for that problem to be solved. Then you can share with each other that and then summary can be taken. And again, second time you can take 1 more minute to look at the best practices that you think to solve those problems are. Write it down and then share with others. And last one is, then you start discussing what are take 1 minute to look at what are the action plan you can take based on the current best practices for improving this. Then discuss, and moderator will ensure that time is spent, nobody speaks for longer time, the point where everybody gets time to talk about it, summarize the action, and each table will then share 2 best points, top 2 points, action point they are recommending, that we put on the board here. We take collage of that, and then out of that Raj and Priyanka will get together and figure out what are the top 2, 3 or 4 things we can recommend out of this workshop for the whole panel. And then some of the NGOs, along with Deshpande Foundation, will get together and say, we will partner in piloting this 1, 2 or 3. Okay, that's the process. The new experiment. So please let moderator drive it. Moderator are trained for it. They may not be, don't take them personally, and make sure that this is more effective. Thank you.
Challenges do you think?
So we just क्या बोले तुमने? हमारा तो पहना इनके पीछे ना
education sector.
Can you go to English?
Makerspace, kind of makerspace, but
I think where, so I don't represent Deshpande Foundation, okay, so I'll say what I have known from my experience of Maharashtra. Because in
a rural area after the course completion, they not market available for job placement, different companies, like
placement opportunities.
Or do we just go one by one? Layers off with. Sure, sure.
Because we can't stick on only one page.
Yeah, right.
Get out of this. We actually like, will there be any real outcome for my participation? Such a that's
making it easier for them to fill those positions, just because there's a shortage everywhere.
So what my organization is trying to do is that there's a concept called mass entrepreneurship. So mass
Community knows the program and feel this our program for our children and they give them free. But parallelly find out a financing model to run the program. That's what one of my understanding.
Please move on faster towards what are the best practices you are seen or implemented to solve the challenges. Thank you.
but they are not doing that. But then the parents please that development give that
our spokesperson.
Solutions that we're going to implement. After that, we'll be presenting each team will be presenting here. And after that, we'll have an XP of 45 minutes. And 10 minutes, close the last piece of what are the next.
best practice. So with this discipline and process concept while engaging with
very qualitative term, it is subjective. It is not. When can you define a person as successful? I have a business which has 20 people. Next year I have 15 people. That defines success. For me, say 20, improving the quality of my delivery, that is successful. No, it's success. I'm talking about actual success. That could have been the actions we can propose, right? So what she told us.
No, I think it's best practice. The actions are we going to make that happen?
We wanted to research. So if we invest in long-term impact, like see what a beneficiary is doing 5 years out, that might help them buy into systemic change models and capacity change models.
So I think going by what the session was started with, right? Like let's not talk about like the long term, like those are not actions.
No. So if we start a long-term
Degree may vary.
Yeah.
Probably not as tough, but you
Okay, the time has come for each table to present their suggestions, ideas for us to implement, and then post it here on the board. And after all the ideas have been presented, we'll go for a break. During that time, moderators will categorize all these suggestions, solutions into main categories. Then we'll come back, discuss those categories, and moderator will help to identify 2 or 3 things that will actually kind of be implemented. If all of us agree, great. Otherwise, we'll do the voting, number 1, number 2 voting, and whatever maximum voted are there, top 3 things we'll take up, and then we'll kind of identify one of them. Any NGO want to take any one of them, pilot, they can come forward. The Deshpande Foundation will take up definitely one of them and can announce it today. Okay? Thank you, and get ready for your presentation. Thank for your cooperation and all help.
Number 1, I'm designating you guys as team number 1. Oh my God. To present your
go for it.
Stand up here.
Yeah, she needs to.
Can they have attention, please? They work very hard. Can you stand? Yeah. So they can all can see.
Oh, okay.
Okay, hi, my name is Victoria and I'm from Queen's University in Canada.
Hi, I am Shanda, I'm from Rapid Dharwad.
Okay, and our question was how to increase awareness in rural India for skill programs in addition to getting a degree, and how to get youth excited about vocational skills. So some of the challenges that we listed was we said that youth are not necessarily motivated to seek these skills because they're more interested in getting government jobs. So yeah, they're not motivated to get these to get entrepreneurial jobs or to learn vocational skills because they want to seek government jobs because there's a lot more stability and job security associated with that, as well as social stigma. A lot of people don't recognize like the importance of vocational skills. Parents or other influencers encourage them to do government jobs instead because they're more consistent. And so because of that, there's no ecosystem of other people who are like-minded and who want to try those things, which makes the cost of failing very high. There's no one to kind of catch you if you fall or any resources to help you succeed if that goes wrong. And so the cost of tools and resources are very high, and resources are very limited to people who want to pursue those skills. So some of the best practices we listed were teaching values. We think that there's a lot of value in these types of skills, and so just installing that importance of these skills in children while they're younger so that they can grow up knowing the importance of this skill, and that as time progresses they can recognize that more and more. And also just the self-directed learning, kind of what they were talking about on the panel, just recognizing important to you and making steps in order to follow that. We also said like creating a dignity of labor, having people have jobs and skills that they're proud of and that they have confidence with so that they're able to be more competitive in the job market as well. And making newer learners feel included. So if you recognize somebody else who is trying to learn something new, make sure that they feel welcome and that they feel supported and able to do that so that they're not intimidated from not doing that. And then just building trust and talking to people as well. So some of the actions that we listed, again, was just teaching these values in young children, installing mentorship programs and building a strong alumni network as well. So that if kids can see someone else who was maybe in their shoes before, they can say like, hey, like now I can do that too because I've been able to see somebody else who's able to, as well as earning college credits, bridging programs together, and also installing a social community that can be built in order to help propel that forward. And then also having incentives to buy equipment, incentives to join co-op placements or to get more hands-on experience as well, so that people are willing to take that leap and to do that. And just making like less critical jobs and more kind of entrepreneurial settings and other opportunities for people as well. Okay. Thank you.
So I think for the sake of continuity, if any group had that same question, the question number 1 about rural vocational skills, if you can come and present, right?
What we'll do together as such. The challenges what we saw in the rural development when it comes to skilling is like awareness of about the career in vocational skills and migration to other states. Then there's a relevant and required job skills, and also there are this formal sector acceptance and recognition. So mostly what we see is not many people or many students are aware of the vocational and professional skills that are available in the market. So the best, the action what we came up with is contacting or counseling the secondary school students, soon after which they opt for their career. So when they come, they are aware of these vocational and vocational skills, so they can actually root out their career, they can plan out their livelihood even before getting graduated, instead of going for a traditional way of going through a +2 and then a graduation.
Okay, connected to the same question is the migration, because there is a situation where there will be shortage of workers in 2 states, or the skilled people in 2 states. There will be excess in 9 states. So if migration is possible, then this shortage can be filled. And one way of filling up that migration is spoken English as a skill in all the states. Then the migration becomes smooth. And the best practice for spoken English is here in Deshpande Foundation itself, as we saw yesterday in a visit to the village.
There is another challenge of not aware of relevant and required job skills. For this, actually there is a inner challenge with this, like accommodation and financing of training of these skills. So action that could be done is like taking a mobile workshop to the places, to the villages, where the students can actually attend the workshop but need not be away from home and not spend on staying, boarding and food expenses. And also like there is another with that, they can also give a financial assistance. So we can just tell them or show a way where they can get a financial assistance, and that's again financial linkage. It's already being done, but that should be done in a larger scale. That's all.
Okay, that's all.
What do you need, sir?
Can I add something to the
Yeah, please. Please come.
About bringing awareness, a lot of awareness about skilling than degrees. But why don't we start bringing a moment that first we'll set a portion in our hiring, at least 5 to 10%, only skilled are going to be hired irrespective of their degrees. Like a lot of we are social organizations and some of we are NGOs. If we set an example, skills are going to be preferred than degrees, then others would follow us. Like I thought of adding that, if I get the question, I thought of adding it, giving more preference to the skill. Let us show it in hiring process, hiring more skilled guys, let them be 10 dropout, prestige or degree dropout, we'll hire them, we'll set the career, show as an example. I'm sorry if policies don't accept. Thank you.
Don't be sorry at all. I'm definitely going to apply to your organization.
We have
jokes apart. I think we need to practice what we preach. At the end of the day. So completely, in fact, cannot agree more with what you have just mentioned. Thank you so much for your coming here. So number 2.
I'm Ashna from Augusta International Foundation, and I'm here to answer about the first question. So the challenges what we are facing, we are not.
You got the first question. Then can we just go straight to the action, because I think the challenges are all pretty much known. Let's just go to the actions.
Okay, fine. So we are not having like grassroots networking at rural areas. For that, what we can do, we can distribute pamphlets, we can do door-to-door surveys, so that people can understand about the root level understanding. And the next is like children who are not interested in school, they are not interested in going to schools, they are not interested in attending skill development classes at. So in that case, what we can do, we can make them understand by Nukkad Natas, if you all are knowing about that, street plays, so that they can understand what are the benefits of skill development activities. The next we can go is, we can make them understand what are the opportunities we can get by understanding about the skill development acts. Like for that, what we can do, we can make the SHG groups know about the benefits of the activities. Okay, and the last, in many rural areas you can see like placement agencies are not there. So they are not interested in going to skill development classes. If the agencies are not able to provide the placement, then why they will go to the skill development training? So for that, we can make the employees to make them understand that you can go to the rural areas, you can establish your firm there, so that children could be interested in going to the skill development classes. Thank you. I hope this will be informative.
So anybody left on question 1? Okay, we'll move to question 2 now. Which group has question 2? I hope somebody has. Nobody from question 2? Okay, we'll move to question 3 in that case. We'll solve it ourselves. So question 3? Yeah, please.
The question that we have is, what is the sustainable model for skilling if people are offering training for free? So we try to address this whole thing to a couple of things like challenges, best practices and actions. I think most of the challenges are common for all of them. So we can skip challenges and best practices, we could straight away move to action points. One of the things that we can integrate the skilling with academic program. Now, if you integrate the skilling with academic program, you are beginning of the pipeline is where you address the problem, not end of the pipeline, as what we are trying to do currently. Second thing, community belongingness in rural area is a point suggested by a colleague that when you are talking of rural communities, this community belonging can be leveraged for skilling programs, and my colleague maybe want to elaborate on that subsequently. Then we can go for employer-sponsored content delivery. So if the employer-sponsored content delivery is taken up, it addresses the challenges of reskilling. One point that we can also add is free access to implement the model and also branding sponsorship of the content. So many a times you can get some brands to sponsor the content in certain areas. Then we can offer training in emerging areas. So a student might want to decide that I am spending my time, even if I have to take a loan, I will not go for a free training, but I will go for a training program which is in emerging areas where I can get better jobs. So that's one of the good possibilities that we have. Another option would be that offer part of the content free, and after one gets introduced to that, then we could move to the paid content.
Actually, I just wanted to elaborate a few points out of this, just a little bit more detail around this. So what we do actually at Sayok Foundation is we develop life skills and creativity in village children in the age group of 5 to 14, which is the most impressionable age. And if you look at any skilling program, unless and until the raw material that is going in for skilling at a later stage is right, unless the children or the students are disciplined, they are teaming with others, they are communicating, they're confident, they have creativity, the effectiveness of further skilling programs will be far enhanced. So that is where we are focusing on the livelihood problem by actually addressing it at the root level, which is developing life skills at the most impressionable age. Now, how we are doing this is, the models of sustainability. Yeah, I just talked about the sustainability part. That is, how do you do it free? Is what we are really exploring. And at this point in time, one aspect is about the branding. That is because we do it through the means of sports and storytelling. So, can an ethical brand look at sponsoring your program? So, for this rural sport, this is what we are actually working with one corporate to look at sponsoring that. So, that could be one way. The second part is a two-step program. So, one is this base program is free. In addition to this, for select children, we are offering a paid program. So the paid program would actually take care of our operational level expenses. And the third thing is making it open. That is, if anybody wants to implement, we have all the processes documented, we have the entire program and the content available. So anyone can implement it in their areas based on how they want to support it. So those are the ways for us, then it becomes free and the impact is the most important part. So that's just an example of it.
You guys want question 3? Sorry? 3, yeah, please.
This is Sheikh Mehboob Chand. I am working with the DF since 3 years in a Department of Edu Skilling. So the question 3 is a sustainable model for the free of cost. So at the free of cost, there are very small number of models will be sustainable because without paying, if we are giving anything also it won't be sustainable for a longer time. Based on that, we have taken a model here to generate the entrepreneurs. How can we generate the entrepreneurs instead of making them employment? How can they give employment to somebody else? So the challenges what we can face with them is reaching out to the beneficiaries. Like the mindset, the entrepreneur mindset people, we need to get the right people and then to approach them, getting data from the local systems, and the action for is without collaborating, no one can provide the data, so we need to collaborate with them. And the following will be continued by.
So we focused in on entrepreneurship because it poses a unique challenge in particular for getting a low-cost model that works. So because entrepreneurs don't have money to put into investment into their own knowledge and resources, it creates a difficulty to create a sustainable model. So we proposed collaborating with the local system, as she mentioned, to kind of use those resources that they have. There's, I guess, local village trainers or local village leaders here in India, so we partner with those people in order to kind of roll out a program that would allow us to connect entrepreneurs, identify their passions, connect them with mentorship, funding, and other opportunities.
So move on to number 4. Sorry, number 4, yeah, please come.
Good afternoon, everybody. So our question is, how do you build entrepreneurial skills in youth so they can look beyond a job and build livelihoods through self-employment? So first challenge is, basically I'm a professor from rural background. I mean, I work for the rural college. So basically what we see is the students, what they lack is, the communication and soft skills. They lack. So the best practices will be, including entrepreneurship skills in their subject. So action plan will be collaborating this with the, schools and colleges, tying up with the industries where they are doing that, and including them in their syllabus as action oriented.
So the major challenges that we thought was a societal barrier. Many people who are graduates and master graduates don't feel like opening a shop in any of the area because of the societal pressure. So one thing that can be a best practice is make them feel proud about the occupation that they take, creating awareness about entrepreneurship and all. So the actions that can be implemented is via media, dedicating a channel for it itself. We have various channels to telecast news and all, but we don't have a channel dedicated for an entrepreneurship. So why can't we open a news channel, or why can't we suggest the government to telecast a channel for entrepreneurship itself? Is one of the suggestions.
So third is funding problems and support greatest challenge, and the best practice will be linking with the NGOs and funding organizations. So like action plan will be CSR fund to entrepreneurship programs and all. So fourth challenge is risk taking. Basically, basically the rural youths, they don't have the attitude or mindset taking the risk. Basically, especially the rural youths, they want to write some government exam, some competitive exam. They want to get into some job, probably MBA, SDA. Actually, they are not aware there is something called corporate world. They are not aware there is something called is beyond that. So we can link them through funding. Next, risk taking. Basically, they don't have the attitude. Taking the risk. Next is lack of information. That is lack of awareness. So creating a platform for that. And also action plan will be conducting a fairs and exhibitions, talk by the resource persons, especially people like you coming to our colleges, addressing the students. That will change their mindset.
The last point is social barriers. They kind of feel, whenever they take this entrepreneurship, why I'm doing such a job. So for that one, we need to change their mindset. So the best practice is making them feel proud about the job and self-employment. So this we can meet by doing like through media sharing and arranging a meeting with the experienced people who are always have a type. Thank you.
Anybody else on number 4?
All of this is primarily to create an ecosystem for entrepreneurs. So when it's ecosystem, it includes even the credit linkages, training, mentorships. The entire thing has to be available for that particular entrepreneur. The second point what you said is to provide teachers. They are the biggest focus. If you see in our challenges, what we figured out is that the education system needs to be up there to ensure that the way they teach students help them to become problem solvers, risk takers, and essentially then they might grow into being an entrepreneur. So the second action for us is to focus on teachers with us in the way they get teaching. Like we've heard about the flip model. It looks interesting because the children are from the beginning are doing self-learning. So that kind of thing would help the student learn better. And the third one is creating a micro-learning module on entrepreneurship. As a non-school elective, we've said non-school elective because we want to influence the government here. So we just want to make it completely a different module, which essentially been put into the system either through a village model or at school after the school hours to ensure that the entrepreneurship as a concept is being built into the students. Thank you.
Hi, we forgot the question. All NGOs have, which is how do we build capex and also how do we show impact in an indirect way to the CSR funded organizations. So is there some kind of change we want to bring up in how we want to show the impact of the CSR organizations, CSR funders is what we're looking at. So for that, what we think is that the best practices would be to bring in more discipline into the way we are working. And also which should probably include communicating clearly on who we are as an organization, our team, our plan, our goals, and how exactly we intend to implement everything. And second would be to regular engagement and decision making at the decision making level, which includes probably a lot of times a very small team of the CSR guys would be involved in the organization or the NGO who's working with them. So we're looking at, we probably should increase that team and understand how exactly your impact will be shown to them very intimately and get more opinion with the big larger team rather than a single team. So which involves like operations and also the person who understands the vision and business development, probably include all kinds of teams into it. And then would be to demonstrate the past impact that we've had. So all of us start small and then we grow big. So whatever we have done as when we started the organization, along with our vision and everything else, if you could demonstrate a lot of numbers and also talk about how exactly we achieved what we did at very, very small level, maybe 1 or 2 or 10, whatever it is. So we can probably show them how we did that. And then also the long-term progress indicators. We start small, but we obviously want to grow big, and that's exactly why we want to work with the CSR guys. So we probably should show them a bigger vision, and 5-year, 10-year, how we want to do it, and how committed we are towards working towards them.
And in terms of the actions we spoke about, so I feel like Madhu already said, we should be able to communicate the plan clearly to them before signing any contracts to them. So make sure that there is that kind of shared vision. And it's important to also co-create the impact metrics. I think a lot of CSR already have pre-established notions of how many students you've trained, how many jobs you've created. If we talk to them about the qualitative impact metrics and create ways to maybe monitor those quantitatively, then maybe we'll be able to show progress in the long term as well. And CSR can also be playing a more important role with us because they're working with a lot of implementation partners. So if they facilitate conversations, say, between an implementation partner in Bihar and one in Jharkhand, ask them to learn from each other, share best practices and share knowledge. That's another thing that could help us do better in the long run. And finally, another thing we spoke about was that if we can also get them to, in terms of immediate action, invest in a long-term impact evaluation. Because a lot of the work in education and skilling only shows impact many years later. So if they only track within the project period, they'll sometimes miss the impact that happens in the long term. So can we go back and study the beneficiaries of say a 2015 project and show them, see, 5 years later, people who got a job are now doing their own businesses. So those kind of investments can also help them think about change from a systemic perspective and build capacity in the long run. Thank you.